Welcome to Pastor Hilary Ministries, where faith meets power and breakthroughs are born. Here, we equip you with bold prayers, life-transforming teachings, and spiritual strategies to overcome every challenge life throws your way. Join us as we dive into God's Word and experience His presence like never before. Subscribe now and let's grow in faith together.
Amen. Let's sit down, brethren. Praise the Lord. We thank the Lord for bringing us to the second part of our When Kings Go to Battle. In the first part, we dealt with some things. But this second part, we are going to focus on taking the new year. We are going to focus on battling to position ourselves in a position of advantage in the new year. So I will encourage you, please, key into the whole days of this program, because the messages, the prayers lined up, they are meant to just deliver that. And that's why today we are going to delete sorrows, hardship, and suffering from the calendars of our lives. That's what we are talking about here today. Deleting sorrow, hardship, and suffering from the calendar of your life. You must know one thing, brethren, that our lives have calendars. Our lives have calendar. From the day you are conceived in the womb, there's a calendar. And that's why you see that after 9 months, you are delivered. That's a calendar. And the moment you are delivered, the calendar starts to run. Each year has its own different program. For January, for daily, for weekly, for monthly. There are different things contained in the calendar. That's why no 2 days are the same. Different events happen in different days, happen in different weeks, in different months. Because of the calendar, some of them are pre-written already. And look at what the Bible says concerning the calendar of our lives. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, look at verse 1. It says, to everything, earth, is contained in the calendar. Everything. He said, to everything there is a season. That is, there is a date. There is a date. And as soon as that date comes, that thing manifests. To everything there is a season, there is a time. To every purpose under the heaven. Verse 2, a time to be born. Isn't that what we call date of birth? Isn't that what people are celebrating every year? Calling the birthday celebration? It's because of what is in a calendar of every, and you discover that our dates of birth sometimes might differ from each other. Because every calendar is unique on its own. Events in the calendar, they are unique on their own. Look at how the Bible describes it. He said there is a date to be born and a date to die. A date to plant and a date to pluck up, to begin to harvest that which is planted. Verse 3. A date to kill and a time to heal. You know, a lot of people are killed daily on earth. If they had known and prayed this kind of prayer we are going to pray here today, who knows, maybe they will have been able to delete that thing from their calendar. Maybe they will have deleted it. So the Bible says a date to be killed, a date to heal, a date to break down, a date to build up. Look at verse 4. A date to weep and a date to laugh. So you now see that these things are all spread on the calendar of our destiny, on the calendar of life. The only problem is that we do not have physical access to the calendar to look at it and say what is where. Assuming we are able to see the calendar and we are able to check, what kind of nonsense full here? You'll be able to know which one to quickly wipe out and delete before they happen. But because we are ignorant, we just wait until it is too late. So you can see how the Bible catalogs these things. That there's a date. Some people are going to cry. There's a date they are going to laugh. A date to mourn, a date to dance. Verse 5. A time to cast out away stones, a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. A day to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rent, to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. These are all littered in the calendars of people's destinies and lives. And these calendars are fulfilling day by day. If we had the opportunity, we have the opportunity actually in this church. We can do more than what we are doing now. The only thing is that we don't have the time for it. Because we can give prayers to pray to begin to see the calendars. And if we had prayed such prayers and have seen 2024, maybe we'll have done to deal with 2024. Because it's a unique year. It's a year like no any other year. It's the worst of all years that since many of us were born. So you now see that their understanding how to look and try to see the calendar of your life is very important. So that you know what to delete out of the calendar and reprogram something else. And rewrite the calendar completely. Which I'm going to show you how we are going to do that. And which is what we are going to do here today in prayers. Look at what the Bible said further. In the place we are reading, in verse 9. He said, what profit had he that worketh in that wherein he laboreth? He said, what profit do you have? If the calendar is against you already, and you are toiling and laboring, he said, what profit is it? He said, the person is just wasting time. Because if the calendar is full of sorrow, pain, suffering, hardship, disappointment, failure, frustration, if it is what filled the whole calendar and the person is toiling and laboring, say, what profit? The first thing to do is to delete all those things completely and rewrite a new thing. Look at verse 10. He said, I have seen the travail. He said, I've seen the suffering of man. I've seen the travail which God has given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. He has made everything beautiful in his time. He says sometimes the calendar is full of beautiful things. And when that time happened, it's just burst out. The day we fulfill for it. Also, he has set the word in their heart so that no man can find out. Do you know that that's why we are all walking in blindness? Nobody find out the word that God made from the beginning of the end to the end. Nobody knows about this calendar. Nobody. And it's a terrible thing, brethren, to walk into the new year blind, not knowing what is inside the calendar of the new year, not knowing what is to our favor and what is against us. But today, these prayers will address all those things. Look at the scriptures with me. Esther chapter 3. Esther 3, look at verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him. This was somebody in the government, like the second in command to the king. And they promoted him and advanced him. He wants to use his position now. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Mordecai was a Jew. He refused to bow to Haman. Verse 3. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass when they spake to him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hand on Mordecai alone. He says it's an insult to kill only Mordecai. It's an insult. For they had shown him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. So he wanted to carry out genocide upon a people, even people that did not offend him. He wanted to delete all of them from under this heaven, wherever they were. Because Ahasuerus had the empire covered the entire Asia and the entire Europe and Africa. So it was a very wide and large kingdom. Now look at what Haman started to do. Verse 7. In the calendar. So why did he go for the calendar? Why did he go for the calendar? Because, brethren, the easiest way to attack anybody is to put that thing into the calendar of their life. To program it into the calendar of their destiny. You just program it if the person didn't react. If the person didn't struggle. If the person didn't fight back. If that person allow it to stay in that calendar, you just go and relax. The day of that calendar, when it reaches there, the thing will explode. So, Haman went straight for the calendar of the Jews. The calendar of their lives. The calendar of their destiny. So, he went for the month. in the first month. That is the month Nisan. He started from the first month. Look at what he did carefully. From the first month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur. That is the lot. They started to do divination. They cast divination. They cast lot. They press sand. They used enchantment and sorcery. They were looking for the date that is free in the calendar, that doesn't have good thing programmed into it. Because if there's already a blessing programmed into a particular day, you can't program negative thing into that day. So they were looking for a free day. And that's why it took them 1 year. They started from the first month. And they cast that lot. They did that Pur all through to the 12th month. To be able to pick the perfect day that is totally free, that will accommodate the plan. And that's why, brother, you must learn how to pray for the calendar of your life. Now look at what follows. So they started to cast the lot day by day, before Haman from day to day. Do you see that? They were casting the lot day to day, and from month to month to the 12th month. They were searching for the perfect day that will accommodate that attack. That is the month Adar, verse 8. And Haman, when they found the perfect month, they were able to find the perfect day. Out of the 12th month, they found the perfect day. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people. Do you see, he didn't rush to the parliament first. He didn't rush to the parliament to introduce the bill. He first of all did the spiritual work behind, and then rushed to the parliament to go now make a bill. Do you know, right before our eyes here, Christians, believers, they will be suggesting some bills against us, and we'll be watching. And some of the bills will take almost 1 year before they go through. And then we will fold our hands and fold our legs and we'll just be watching. And some of them, they will propose it and establish it and say, okay, it will not take effect until April next year. And then we'll be watching until that day will come. And then the pain will start. The hardship will start. The suffering will start. That's when we now start to scream. And that's when we start our own prayers. So now let's go on. So after doing what he had to do spiritually at the background, he now went to the king. There is a people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of their kingdom. And their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's prophets to suffer them. We shouldn't allow them to exist. If it please the king, let it be written. Do you see what we want to delete today? Things that are written. Written without your knowledge. Written behind you into the calendar of your life. He said, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hand of those that have the charge of the business to bring it to the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seems good to you. Anything you want to do with them, go and do to them. Then take note of what happened. They didn't just approve it from the king and rush and cut off their head. No, it will not work. Then verse 12, then were the king's scribes. Do you see how these things work? They call the scribes. On the 13th day, take note of the date, the 13th day of the what? The first month. And there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governor that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of the king Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by the post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, to cause to perish all Jews. That's what is contained in that date, in that calendar. Both young and old, little children and women, in one day. Even upon the what? 13th day of the, they wrote it on the first day of the 13th day of the first month, to execute it on the 13th day of the 12th month. They fix it in the calendar of their lives. if they kept quiet, if they assumed that, well, it's just ordinary threat, we will go to United Nations. On the 13th day of the 12th month, they will see it manifesting. Because it's already written with the authority and the king's ring and sealed that that day on the calendar is going to be executed. Which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Verse 14. The copy of the writing of the commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. So it's now official, it's now gazetted, and it's now in the calendar of their destiny. That day, they are going to be wiped out. Verse 15. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink. But the city Shushan was perplexed. This is because the people heard about it that were writing it. The ones they write about us today, do we hear anything? The ones they write in our father's houses before we were even born. The day we were born, the ones witches gathered together and they wrote. Did we see that one? The ones occultists of the land wrote against us that children of God should not prosper, and they wrote it in the calendars from year to year. Have we seen that one? Have we read it? These are the things affecting us. And that's why you see children of God. Not that we are lazy, not that we are stupid, not that we don't know what we are doing. We will invest, we will work hard, we will labor, we will do everything. But there are too many things in the calendar working against us. Things that are backed up by authority and power, sealed with the king's ring. And we are struggling against all those things. How did the Jews handle this? Because that is important to us. How did Mordecai, how did all the Jews, because their destiny have been sealed, how did they handle it? Esther chapter 4. So the news came to Mordecai, and then Mordecai told him all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman has promised to pay to the king's treasury for the Jews to destroy them. So Mordecai ran to Esther, being the queen, and then told her everything. Verse 8. Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given. He laid hand on the calendar. He laid hand on their calendar. And he was able to show the date and everything that all this is going to happen. So, giving Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's province, they know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of him to put him to death, except such whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. Verse 12. And they told Mordecai Esther's word. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself. Don't think you are secure. Don't think you are safe because you are also a Jew. You are carrying the blood of the Jews. This calendar includes your own calendar. Don't think you will be safe in that place. He said, do not that you escape in the kingdom more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come into the kingdom for such a time as this? And Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather all the Jews that are present in Shushan. All the Jews. Children, adults, male, female, every person in Shushan, and fast for me. That's number one weapon, fasting. Fasting. This is when your calendar has been littered, and they have used sorcery and divination to pick out a date of destruction. You need fasting to be able to delete what they wrote by authority and rewrite something else. We are going to see it. He said, fast for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go into the king, which is not according to the law. And so Mordecai went his way, and they did according to all that Esther has commanded him. They didn't say, well, Esther is a queen, he should use authority now. There's nothing like a queen here. Position doesn't matter if your calendar has been marked with negative things. Esther chapter 8. Look at verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen, because they fasted, they prayed, and things started to turn. The Lord started to step in. And that's why I'm so confident today that as we pray, the Lord will step in. And everything the enemies have marked in the new year against us in our calendars, we shall delete all of them today. And we shall write new ones that will favor us. So the Bible said that on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring. Take note. Because what matters here is the power. Who holds the power? Who controls the power? The king took off the ring which was taken from Haman and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away. Take note. Esther didn't say, well, we have killed Haman, because finally they were able to hang Haman and destroy his children and do all those things. Esther didn't stop there. Why? Because there's something written, and anything written and sealed becomes a law. And that law, you don't allow the law to stand. If you leave it like that, it will execute. So Esther did not stop. Esther now came again and fell before the king at his feet and begged him with tears to do what? To put away, to delete. To delete. Important. To make sure you delete all the mischief, all the handwriting, that date that have been marked, to delete it, of Haman the Agagite and his device that he has devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the things seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written. To do what? He said we need to rewrite these things. We don't just think, well, we have victory, we have prayed, God has answered our prayer. No. He said we have to delete the one that Haman wrote and then reverse it and then write our own. He said we have to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman. You shall possess the house of your enemies. And him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Now verse 8, he say, write ye also. Do you know you are going to write some things here today? He said, write you also. You are going to write what will happen in your own life in the new year, from the first second of 2025 till the last second of 20. You are going to write what is going to happen. He said, write also for the Jews, as it liketh you, whatsoever you like, in the king's name, in the name of the Lord Jesus, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Verse 9. Then were the king's scribes called again. You remember what Haman did with them? He called the same scribes to write. Now you are going to also call the scribes of heaven. He said they called the scribes again immediately. At that time in the 3rd month. Remember? See what's happening here now. The calendar has started moving. The calendar has reached the 3rd month. He has reached, they did it in the 1st month, the 13th day. Now he has reached the 3rd month already. So they called them in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, on the 3 and 20th day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and to the deputies, and the rulers of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia. Do you see the vastness of the kingdom? And 127 provinces, about, let's say, 127 countries. Unto every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people according to their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews, which were in every city, to gather themselves together. It has not finished though. The moment the enemies engrave anything, the moment they write anything, the moment they code anything into anybody's calendar, the process to get rid of it is not one step. Oh. Look at the next step now. They now granted all the Jews everywhere to gather together. And that's why we gather together for this program. He said they should gather and to stand fight. So it's not like, well, the king has written it, that's the end, we should go home. No. The king told them, he said, even though I have written these things, even though I have sealed these things, even though I have reversed the one that Haman wrote, you still need to fight for your life. He said, what are you going to do now? You are all those things the enemy intended for you, you are going to reverse it and do it to them that same date. The date they have programmed to you, to harm you, to cause you pain and suffering, turn it upon the enemy. He said you have to now fight for your life, to destroy, to slay, to cause to perish all the power of the people and prophets that will assault you, both little one and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Verse 12. Upon one day in all the prophets of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar. That's the date they fixed. That's the same month you are going to fight. Say that same date they have planned to wipe you out. That's the date you are going to fight back and wipe them out. Verse 13. The copy of the writing for the commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Verse 16. The Jews had light. Why? Because something has been deleted from their calendar. Their destruction has been deleted. The Jews had light, and they had gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness instead of sorrow, instead of death and destruction that was planned for them. They had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. People started to convert. People started to convert because they were able to do what no human being has done on earth before. They were the first people that were able to go into the calendar of their lives and wipe out things that were contrary to them. Esther chapter 9. Look at verse 1. Now, in the 12th month, when the month finally came, even though they have reversed the decree, they've deleted everything from the calendar. But remember that human beings, remember it was human beings that wrote these things. Human beings might want to still do something. So, in the 12th month, in the month Adar, on the 13th day, that's the deal day. The deal day. Of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in their city throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their heart. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the province and the lieutenants and the deputies and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai was greater and greater. Thus the Jews, take note, the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. Even though the king has signed, reversed the law of Haman, replaced it with a new law, deleted all the whole thing from the calendar, there were still 500 people that were not willing to obey. That's where you have to fight. So the Jews had to now manually delete those ones. 500 of them. Verse 10. The 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, they slew those ones. But on the spoil laid they not their hand. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace were brought before the king. Verse 12. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace. And the 10 sons of Haman, what have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is thy petition? Do you see that? You say, what do you still want? Is there anything you still want us to do? And it shall be granted you. Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according to this day decree. He said, let them still repeat this slaughter again. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king's commanded it to be so done. And the decree was given at Shushan. And they hanged Haman's 10 sons. Verse 15. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day. Remember, it was 13th day they were to do it. They've slaughtered some people on the 13th. They didn't stop. So on the 14th of December of the 12th month, they gathered again also and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey laid they not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's province gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies and slew of their foes 75,000. From India to Ethiopia, they killed 75,000. But they laid no hand on the prey. On the 13th day of the month, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of... Do you see how they changed the calendar? Do you see how they changed the calendar? This is a calendar originally that was written destruction, utter wipeout, total deletion, and they now change it to what? Feasting. That's what you are going to do here today. You are going to decide what to write in each day of the month, in each day of the year. You are going to write all of them that this day is a day of gladness, this day is a day of feasting, this day is a day of testimony, this is a day of dancing, this is a day of miracle. That's how you are going to write it by yourself. So they changed the calendar to day of feasting and gladness, verse 18. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore, the Jews of, verse 19, the Jews of the villages that dwelt in your war towns made the 14th day of the month a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portion one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the province of the kings of Assyria, both nigh and far. He now wrote it to the Jews, only the Jews. What did he write to them? To establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar and the 15th day of the same year as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy. He said they should put it on their calendar. It became engraved for all generation throughout all Jewish calendar. He said they should write it, become a permanent thing, forever and ever, from morning unto good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portion one to another, and give to the poor. Verse 23, and the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and has cast poor. They still remember. That is, he cast law to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, everything was turned around. Everything was turned around. Verse 26, wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. They put it in their calendar forever, and until today they are still in their calendar. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and all that is was seen concerning this matter, and which has come unto them, verse 27, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as he should not fail, that they should keep these 2 days according to this their writing, and according to the appointed time every year. This is how you rewrite calendars. This is what you do to rewrite the calendars of your life. Especially if you notice that specific things happen at specific times every year in your life. Maybe specific month, there's a disappointment, a sudden failure, there's sickness, there's an attack, there's a setback, there's negative thing that always happens specific time of the year. Then you have to pray this prayer to rewrite that calendar, to delete what is written there and rewrite a new thing there. And that's what we are going to do now. Let's close our eyes. Let's close our eyes. First of all, we are going to repent before the Lord. Because do you know how all this trouble started for the Jews? It was the arrogance and pride of Mordecai. It was the arrogance and pride of, what does it take for him to say, good morning, sir, and then go your way? All these things wouldn't have happened. So you are going to say, Lord, where I caused all this trouble for myself, where I invited all this for myself, where my sins and my stupidity caused all this pain for me, I am so sorry, Lord. I am deeply sorry. Forgive me, Lord. Have mercy upon me, my Father. Have compassion on me, Lord. Have mercy upon me. Oh God, my Father, you are the King of kings. You are the King above even the King of Ahasuerus. You are the King of heaven and earth. You are the King that there's no any other king above you. I cry out therefore, O Lord God, arise now in your power, arise now in your authority, and fight for me, Lord. Fight for me today, my Father. Fight for me, Lord. Fight for me, Lord. Fight for me, Lord. Father, I beg you, hear my cry. Arise and fight for me. Fight for my family. Fight for Diadem, Lord. Fight for your church. Fight for your children. Fight for us today, Lord.
Thank you for watching. If this message blessed you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join our growing community of faith. If you are in London area, we invite you to fellowship with us. Otherwise, visit www.pastorhillary.org, where you will get the full prayers that follow this message, and download our app, Diadem Media, for more life-changing resources, and stay connected with us for your journey of spiritual growth. Until next time, may God bless you abundantly and guide you in all your ways.